Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. In the year of 2078, a corporation called the New Economic Bloc colonized the planet of Sirius 6b and turned it into a barren wasteland in their effort to mine it. A federation of workers called the Alliance was formed to prevent the NEB from destroying the world, but after a decade of war they're still no longer closer to winning. At a run-down Alliance mining town, the soldier Private Leone loses a handful of smokes to his comrade before noticing somebody approaching the bunker. He takes a closer look to see that it's a terrified NEB soldier who Lieutenant Landowska wonders how he even made it this far with all of their automated defenses. 5 years into the war, a group of Alliance scientists created and deployed dangerous self-replicating AI robots to protect them against the New Economic Bloc. Named autonomous mobile swords and come to be called screamers from the deafening noise that they make from degrading. The terrified soldiers forced to fight them off while trying to alert the Alliance bunker that he only wishes to show them something. One suddenly slices off his arm as more chop him into pieces, causing Leone to throw up and Landowska to question whether or not they're even the good guys. Lieutenant Commander Chuck enters and says that without the help of the screamers they would have lost the war to the NEB a long time ago. Wondering what the soldier was doing out there all alone, Landowska says that he had something to show them, so Chuck goes out alone just in case it's a bomb. Since screamers are designed to target anything with a heartbeat, the Alliance has bracelets that emit a frequency to render them invisible from the machines. Strangely enough, the screamers have been taking body parts underground lately, so Chuck must shoot one to get hold of the cylinder first. It's an important message for their leader, so he takes it to Commander Joseph Hendricksson, who's listening to Mozart and admiring his ancient coin. Inside is an invitation for peaceful negotiation, so Joe meets with Secretary Green to discuss the situation, but he only appears by hologram. It's breaking up due to radiation on Sirius 6, but Green says the NEB has found another resource-heavy planet and wants to create peace so they can both mine it. It lacks the same radiation caused by the nuclear war that's so bad here that soldiers light up a special cigarette every time a rad storm approaches to counter its effect. Chuck says that it's a good thing the war never reached Earth, but Joe thinks that if it had, then the generals would have called for a ceasefire years ago. Suddenly the building shakes and alarms ring out as everyone's alerted to a large Alliance plane that crashes right outside of the bunker. It contains a nuclear reactor and a single survivor out of the 38-person crew, causing screamers to appear as he doesn't have a bracelet. They first focus on taking away all of the fresh corpses before the Alliance soldiers must fight to get the man back inside the building. The commander's told that rookie marksman Ace Jefferson has no clue what was on board the plane and only just joined up recently to fight. He talks while Joe researches one of the revised screamers to learn that their program has noticeably been modified and the CPU no longer reads in a human language. To the commander's surprise, Ace says that the real Secretary Green actually died 2 years ago and there's no ceasefire agreement, just more war on the new planet. Chuck still believes the hologram, but Joe assumes it was a trick played on them by their generals to give them hope and keep them buried away on Sirius 6. He thinks that the Alliance has abandoned them and decides he's going to visit the NEB's headquarters to create a real ceasefire of his own. Chuck wants to accompany Joe, but the leader decides to take Ace with him so that they won't get any more of their own people killed. The friends say their goodbyes and Chuck stays at the bunker to take over as the acting commander while Joe and Ace set out across the now snow-covered planet. The rookie's worried about their journey, especially when Joe informs him that their bracelets tend to degrade from all of the radiation. They come to an abandoned refinery where Ace is given a red smoke and told that he'll know if they're working by it not killing him. A screamer that's following the two kills a rat right next to them and takes its body underground, prompting Ace to wonder if they're even considered robots anymore. Joe says that the first were created by the Alliance, but now nobody knows how many exist as they were made to continuously self-replicate. They quickly take cover when somebody approaches, but it's just a small child standing there holding a teddy bear. The orphan David says that he lives in the ruins by himself, is vague about the type of food he eats, and that he hides from the screamers whenever they approach. Joe gives him a food ration and tells him that they'll pick him up on their way back, but Ace convinces him to let the boy join them. At nighttime they take shelter in the ruins where Ace explains the perfect way to cook rats while Joe's scared to death by a rock bug that gives the fearless boy a good laugh. Checking in with the bunker like he said he would, Chuck is on the other end and says that they had a new recruit arrive today who's a bit weird, but everything should be okay. A few minutes later, Joe is playing with David's teddy bear and doesn't notice that Ace has taken his bracelet off to relax. A screamer attacks them, but Joe manages to save Ace and destroy the machine, which resembles an animal and contains an upgraded chip with the strange markings. The next morning they cross a frozen lake where the three are detected by an NEB soldier from the ventilation shaft in a refinery. After scanning the three strangers, he shoots David, who would be killed if he wasn't already a screamer disguised as a human. He lets out a shriek like the machines and bends the barrel of Ace's gun, but he still manages to pull the trigger and destroy it. The NEB sniper Becker tells them that the screamers have gotten smarter, and when shown the fake peace negotiation, he and his chronically terrified friend let them inside their shelter. Once in, Joe calls Chuck to warn him about the new type of screamer that look like humans, but because of the radiation the signal breaks up. It turns out that Private Becker and Ross are the survivors of a similar attack after they had brought a kid into their bunker who slaughtered their entire team. The four soldiers get into a heated standoff as the NEB soldiers blame the Alliance for creating the machines, but Ace rebuts they only did it out of necessity after the new economic bloc started dropping bombs. Joe's at the head of the chain of rifles when another survivor enters named Jessica and gives the boys a bottle of scotch to calm them down. She's a black market dealer who gave the soldiers shelter after their attack and only agrees to show Joe the underground way to the NEB headquarters if he promises to take her back to Earth. She prepares to leave while Joe breaks the news that nobody's going back to Earth for a long time as the factions have continued the war on a whole new planet. Becker even gives his own side a hard time for being a nervous wreck as Ross has a breakdown at the sound of Becker sharpening his knife. Ace shows his commander that the black market dealer has Alliance weapons and a plutonium rocket they could use, but Joe doesn't want to make the place any more irradiated. Once geared up, they all take an elevator deeper underground and begin cautiously walking towards the NEB's headquarters, unsure of what to expect on arrival. They climb into a food court on the ground level of the HQ where they find the place covered in a bloody mess with no signs of any life. Ross gets largely hysterical at the prospect of dying, so Joe fires off a round telling him to calm down and orders Ace to shoot the rookie if he fails to do so. He tries to send a message from the command center back to base, but they're forced to hide when a small screamer reptile enters the room with a saw blade for a face. It's only here to download information from the computer before leaving, but Ross emerges too quickly, needing Ace to save him by using his bracelet to disguise his heartbeat. It works well until Ace makes a sound and the screamer leaps at him, so Ross saves him back in return by shooting it. The noise attracts more, so the commander orders Ace to take everybody back to Jessica's place while he uses the computer to inspect the screamer's processor. It shows the modified designs of the self-revised screamers, with Type 1 being the reptile and 3 being the cyborgs like David. Just then Joe gets approached by a Type 3 that asks to go with him before trying to kill him when Joe blows off its head. Dozens more David bots emerge from the shadows, so Joe runs back to Ace and they take a lift back up to the refinery where the rest are waiting for them. He wants to know what the Type 2 screamer looks like, which Jessica says was a bait model that looked like a wounded soldier crying out for help. The Alliance never encountered one, but Becker says they just say the same thing over and over again, like help me, or as he points out, Ross has been saying get off my back. Becker hurls his blade into Ross's chest, killing him as he suspected him to be a Type 2 screamer, but Joe pulls out a blood-covered knife. Jessica says that it was something that a Type 2 would do, but none of them can be sure that the other person isn't a screamer, so they all constantly stay on edge. They choose to go back to the commander's bunker, and Jessica asks if they'll let them in if Joe isn't with them, but he says that if Chuck is clever enough he won't. Becker doesn't repent for the murder but says it was a mistake, so Joe replies that he'll kill him before he lets him make it again. The four return from the same way that Joe and Ace came, past the destroyed David and listening to Becker talk about how insignificant they all are. When they get to the bunker, Chuck tells Joe to get closer and he'll open the door, but the commander senses something off about his friend, so the group stands back. The doors open and out marches an army of Type 3s, but they move so slow that the group's able to just perch on a dune shooting at them. They easily get set on fire but begin taking out saw blades, so Ace loads up the mini nuke he took from Jessica and Joe fires it into the base. The whole Alliance facility's annihilated, destroying all of the Type 3 machines and knocking the four survivors unconscious. By the time they recover, the sun's up and Ace hears a wounded Becker shouting help me, but he falls straight into the Type 2's trap. The screamer crushes Ace between its hands before tossing his corpse aside like he does the commander when he charges him. Joe shoots Becker in the face but only damages the flesh suit, as he claims not to be a Type 2 screamer at all but something completely different. He can think for himself unlike the robotic hive mind, but talks so much that Joe loads up a grenade into his gun and blows the chatterbot in half. Inside is a triangle processor, unlike the rounder ones of the Alliance originals or the square ones of the self-revised screamers. Jessica wants to have a look at the chip, so Joe slices her hand just to be sure that she's human, then goes to do it to himself but doesn't, as she already believes him. They share a quick kiss before making their way to a place called Alamogordo, where the miners first discovered the planet's valuable resource and scientists built the nuclear bombs. Joe heard stories of a way to get off the planet, but on the way there Jessica gives up, saying that she doesn't have anybody to go back for anyway. Neither does the commander, but he encourages her to do it together, and they reach the site, which requires an Alliance commander's biometric signature to open the hidden entrance. Inside there's an escape shuttle intended only for commanding officers, but there's a crane blocking the way, so Joe attempts to move it. He accidentally activates the countdown and a platform that brings Jessica down to the shuttle safely. But while he's attempting to climb down himself, Joe's struck from behind by a screamer wearing the face of Chuck. It tries to throw Joe off the crane to his death, but he holds on for dear life when the talkative machine begins to strangle him with Chuck's thighs. It says that Becker was actually a NEB commander who, like his friend Chuck, didn't have much use for his skin after the screamers killed him. Joe sticks it in the chest with his blade, but it doesn't react, so he touches a live wire to the metal knife, electrocuting the machine and destroying Chuck when it lands on a security laser. He gets down to the shuttle, but Jessica has learned that there's only life support for a single person and tells Joe that he should leave her. He flips his coin instead to decide, but before checking the results they kiss, when another Jessica walks up, revealing them both to be advanced model screamers. Nearly indistinguishable from humans, they're even able to bleed, and when Jessica tries to explain herself, Joe knocks her aside and attempts to leave. The other one prevents him and tries to steal the shuttle, but the first drags her out and we get a fight between the two artificial Jessicas. Their free wills advance so much that one's fallen in love with Joe and defends him, but is distracted by the countdown and gets punched straight through her power core. The second then wails through a bullet fired by Joe to disorientate him, but the shuttle activates and the screamer's destroyed in its burning exhaust. With only a minute left, Joe walks over to his savior and jokes that the screamers have fully evolved into humans, as now they're even killing each other. Jessica was fighting against her own programming over wanting to tell Joe what she really was, and says that she loves him before shutting down. He gets in the escape shuttle and departs Sirius 6, finally getting to throw away the bracelet that hides him from the common screamers. It lands by one of the Type 3's teddy bears that's also a screamer and hitches a ride back to Earth. And the movie ends.